Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Moffat on Money. So far, Ellen is still in the makeup room. She will be with us shortly. She assures me. Whatever shortly is, I'm not sure. But good to see you. Good to be with you tonight. Been a not so hot day for those of us who are Auburn fans. Yes, it is true. Bama cheated again and won the game. So give credit where credit is due. We were so close. Hate it anyway. Hope wherever you are that it's been a good Thanksgiving weekend for you. I know a couple of people are dealing with some pains, some losses. So our thoughts and prayers go out to those, and hope everyone else has enjoyed the time in the weekend. Still got a little bit more left in it. I was just getting some feedback here I had to kill. Technology is hard. So, still looking for Ellen to join us here shortly. I see her walking up to the computer. She does live. She just sent me a Hawaiian good luck sign. Do y'all know what a Hawaiian good luck sign is? It is I don't know how many will remember or are familiar with when the USS Pueblo was captured by the North Koreans. This was in the 60s. What year was it? 63? I forget exactly, 64. Anyway, they were captured by the Koreans and roughed up a little bit. Koreans wanted to take a photograph for propaganda purposes. So they lined up all the Americans, the sailors, and all the sailors were sitting there giving this. And the North Koreans weren't familiar with that particular, significance of that particular sign language. And so they asked what this? And the sailors told them it was a Hawaiian good luck sign. So the Koreans went ahead and published the pictures around the world. And obviously they were educated on what the meaning and significance of it was, and literally beat the hell out of the sailors. And sailors knew it was coming. So my hat's off to them. If you've never seen the pictures, you can see them at the Naval Museum, I believe, down in Pensacola. But yeah, hats off to them. So Ellen was using her sign language abilities.
Yes, I was. I've got to do something about, hang on. Hey, Carson. Hey, Melissa. Oh, then you can't see me. I got to turn the overhead on.
She worked hard putting that makeup on. Her staff did. And
what makeup? No, I actually.
And a new hairstyle.
I slept about, I don't know how long last night. 3.5, 4 hours.
7, 8 hours.
And then Mahoney had a seizure in the middle of the night. So it was, it's been a long day. So I hopped in the tub, take a little Epsom salt bath just to kind of, try to stay awake. Carson's going to dinner soon.
A warm bath keeps you awake. That's good to know.
Well, the Epsom salt, it kind of re-energizes you to some extent. Yes, Carson, technology is hard, but WAP, right?
That's one of the best things to come out of the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Melissa, Carson, hope y'all have had a good Thanksgiving so far. We had a relatively quiet one.
I guess Carson probably didn't have a Thanksgiving. He's in Canada.
Well, that's all right. You still celebrate Thanksgiving wherever you are in the world. It's a good day to be thankful.
It is a good day to be thankful. It is stressful. And Clay, actually, she did it in Clay's room, and he was yelling for me. And of course, I was dead asleep. And yeah, I didn't see it. He did. So you can go ahead if you want to
Yeah, I just heard this chaotic noise. It was like there was some, running around, banging into things. And of course, it was, pitch black dark. So I had to roll over and try to flip on the light, then go to the far other side of the bed and look. And she was on the floor, just, with her feet, just doing that over and over and over. I tried to pet her and talk to her or whatever. And um, then she stopped, finally stopped and didn't move. Couldn't tell that she was breathing. I thought she had died. And about that time, Ellen was awake, and so after, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, she was up walking around kind of like normal. Went to her room and went back to sleep. Mahoney has her own room.
Yes, she's a princess.
And so today, she was generally pretty normal. She went outside for just a few minutes. She usually loves it outside. Went outside for just a few minutes and then desperately wanted back in. So that was a little unusual for her. But
yeah,
we're just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
We're just trying to keep an eye on her and make sure she's okay and comfortable. And she's gotten everything she wanted today when she wanted it.
So. Oh, yeah. She had to change my sheets. She came up after the seizure, after I knew she was all right. She wanted to snuggle, but she had lost control of her bladder, and I tried to dry her off. Was not going to put her through any more hell of like a bath or anything like that, because that would just be awful. But she, all my sheets just smelled like cat pee, so I had to change those. That's another reason I was a little late. But I mean, actually, Clay, she tried to go out when I came back upstairs, and I didn't let her. I don't want her to have a seizure out if she has another one out in the wild.
Well, we've been trying to keep an eye on her today and see if anything else is going on or anything abnormal is. But so far, she seems, just about normal.
And like I think we've told you this before, she was feral when I got her. Her mom was feral. She was 6-8 weeks old when my daughter adopted her, and she you can't keep her inside. It's just not. It's not a thing. She's sweet as she can be. She's a little fickle and moody, but when she wants attention, she wants to be loved on. And ooh, I think I have some, Melissa. CBD. Don't we have another chew that I got for Chunk?
Not sure.
To try to calm him down, but it ended up making him a little more neurotic.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I can't keep her inside, but we don't know, because we have mice on the island. She could have gotten a hold of a mouse that had been poisoned. I don't know. We don't. That's the problem with having an indoor-outdoor cat. You don't know what they've gotten into. You don't know if they could have gotten hit by a car, and you don't know. And bless her, I love her. She's a good kitty. She walks with us when we walk the dogs, all that good stuff. But we just got to keep an eye on her and make sure she's not getting any worse.
Yeah. Carson, Thanksgiving was in October for us. This week, I was thankful not to be sick anymore. Well, glad you're not sick. And I forgot about the October one in Canada. I'm sitting here thinking the rationale, probably because harvest is sooner in Canada because your winters start sooner. Don't know. But feel free to educate us on that. Sorry we missed the...
Yeah. We missed your October Thanksgiving. So happy late Thanksgiving.
Happy belated Thanksgiving.
Anyway. And Melissa, if you have any recommendations on CBD for cats, you can shoot us an email. I'd love to know your thoughts. for a little
Also of news and interest, we finally reshot the beginning investing video.
Yeah.
So that's in Ellen's hands, and maybe with some encouragement from y'all,
It was
I will
in the,
take her. I
and
will
then
take her and sit her down tomorrow, sit with her, and we'll try to get that video put together and knocked out.
and how do y'all like the new background and the, you notice there's I thought that was kind of cute.
Oops, sorry, I was going to show it off, but it actually cuts off our mics. I forgot about that.
Oh, anyway, let me know what you think about it. I'm trying to make a few changes, and the green seems money-ish, and the 2 M's, which is Moffat on money. That was, something I thought was kind of cute, but y'all let us know what you think. I'm trying to change it up and see what y'all like best. Fancy.
Gosh, theoretically it gets cold or earlier here, but we don't even have snow here yet. Well, that's kind of weird because I was seeing snow in Colorado, a week or two ago, and then Montana had some snow yesterday. I have a friend, former student that lives up there, and she posted a picture of a mushroom with snow on top of it, called it a snow cap. So I'm like, how do they get snow south of you and not where you are? But yeah, I like the background too. I'll go ahead and throw that vote in.
You like the new one?
I do.
Okay. Is that better than the old one?
I think Melissa described it best. It's fancy.
It's fancy.
It's fancy.
You love green. Green is good. It's a good color, and color of money. Why not?
Tonight, as the background says, we were going to talk a little bit about a different topic: woke investing. Many people who watch this, we actually have people in Scotland and Russia, all over that will watch it or watch it on Replay Crew. And they may not be familiar with what the phrase woke investing means. Well, it is just kind of a catch-all phrase that embodies a series of ideals that holds investors should prefer or invest in companies that take overt measures, put in intentional policies, which are seen as fostering a greener planet, as well as social justice, racial diversity, these kind of things. So it's almost a political movement inside corporations. Woke implies a focus on environmental, social, and governance issues, which shorthand nomenclature is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. These concepts kind of, came into vogue or were introduced, I guess, formally in 2004 with a UN paper, UN report titled Who Cares Wins. Nice, catchy little title. And I actually have a copy of it.
Clay, I'm sorry. I'm looking for something, so I apologize if I'm a little not paying attention right now.
It's no problem.
I want to add something to this.
The Global Compact, Who Cares Wins. This is the actual report. And, as you can tell, it's 41 pages long. And this is the first print or paper to actually use the term ESG, environmental. Whoops, this doesn't highlight too well. Well, there it is. Environmental, social, and governance, ESG. Thank you, Adobe, for not allowing highlighting. There's actually probably a way to do it here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, look at that. You just have to use what they want you to use. Environmental, social, and governance. So that's the first use of ESG. And it kind of, you okay there?
Yeah.
Just heard a big noise. Sorry.
I don't know what that was. I don't know. I'm sorry.
The new term ESG became a big hit, was immediately in vogue, and became all the rage in short order. Rapidly, people cared more about sustainability and respect and diversity in the workplace. Campaigns on these issues picked up steam over the next decade, and standards were actually developed and quantified by the leading investment analysis certification society. Let me throw this over there. And here they are, global ESG disclosure standards for investments. Now, they actually lay out in great detail what the standards are, how to evaluate them, how to analyze them. They have a handbook. They have an exam to qualify as a, analyst in this section. Obviously have it in different languages. And if you take a look at the procedures manual itself, how to analyze ESG, 60 pages, 59 pages. Well, if you go into some of the details, just pick, any standard. Examiner must conduct testing to determine that the ESG disclosure statement includes all of the items specified in provision 2.A.1. The name of the investment product, testing procedures used. Here's an example. Examiner should inspect the investment products, offering documents, marketing materials to determine the, So it's just 60 pages of gobbledygook and trying to develop factors and even quantitative measures for determining how well somebody achieves racial goals, social justice, their carbon footprint, all of these kind of things. So if we break ESG down into the three main areas, what's encompassed by each? Well, for example, environmental would include climate change and carbon emissions, air and water pollution, biodiversity, deforestation, energy efficiency, waste management, water scarcity. Okay, all of that's covered under environmental. The social aspect would include customer satisfaction, data protection, gender and diversity, employee engagement, community relations, human rights, and labor standards. And then finally, governance. Governance consists of the board's composition, who makes up the board of directors. The audit committee. The audit committee is a subcommittee of the board. So it talks about the structure and, who should sit on it and their duties and responsibilities. Then you've got a section on bribery, corruption, executive compensation. That's a hot topic. Lobbying, political contributions, and whistleblower schemes. Now, while many of these would probably gather unanimous support from most any rational person, for example, water scarcity. I think we all can agree that water scarcity is an issue in a lot of areas around the world. Protecting water quality is a big concern. So, there's things in there that I think most everybody could agree on. Some details are, business oriented, truly business oriented, not really political. For example, the audit committee. Audit committee actually is a function that is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Committee under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. Sarbanes-Oxley was, I forget the exact number of pages, but it was somewhere around 800 or 900 pages. And the last I heard in 2020 was that the SEC already had like 16,000 pages of regulations emanating from Sarbanes-Oxley, and they still weren't done interpreting it. So it's an interesting bill and a whole nother video. But for the audit committee, the SEC requires that the members be independent. That means they, not be an executive of the company who's being audited, or an employee of the company, or have close business relations with the company. They also have to have a knowledge of accounting and financial systems. The audit committee selects the auditor, and they establish procedures for handling complaints and issues. So if the auditor finds something or complains about something, they're the ones who, have established the process on how to deal with it. So, and, there are several little regulations like that. So, but the thing about ESG that really gets the attention are the components that we refer to as wokeness. And ESG has spawned great adoration and affection in some sectors of the populace. For example, millennials and Gen Zers. One poll that Morgan Stanley took showed that over 75% said that they had made changes in their investment portfolio or will in response to social justice movements. It's an interesting survey. And here it is. Morgan Stanley Institute for Sustainable Investing. 4 in 5 investors remain focused on sustainable investing during the pandemic. Now, this report came out in 21. So a lot of the data was gathered, a lot of the basic information was gathered in the late 20s, early 21. Big problem was the turbulence of significantly impacted sustainable investing. Actually saw now in the decade before this, the trend had always been increasingly towards sustainable investing. Millennials, Gen Zers loved it, ate it up. A lot of investors started picking up and carrying the baton. But once COVID hit, once the market started dropping, people got a little bit more concerned about other things other than sustainability and diversity and whatever. So you started seeing some drop in support of ESG, even in this study, even with the overwhelming numbers for it. So that's the thing. Some of it appears good, but there is some confusion, a lot of confusion that is generated over it. For example, in the standards we saw, a goal to reduce carbon emissions and have less deforestation. Well, if we just look at it, Cliff Notes version, carbon is fuel for plants. The more there is, the greener the earth gets. Now, looking at sensing data from NASA satellites, the earth has actually, these past decade, increased its green area by 5%, which is about 5.5 million square kilometers, roughly equivalent to the size of the Amazon rainforest. So the earth is becoming greener. Now, simultaneously, groups will argue against deforestation, harvesting forests for paper products in the U.S., which, if we don't harvest trees in the U.S., that leads to more importation of wood and paper products from other areas around the world with less regulations. For example, harvesting wood from the Amazon. Now, pulp and paper companies manage huge acreage for harvesting and providing pulp. They'll harvest, but they'll replant. And they harvest in such a way, or they harvest in such a way that allows regeneration of the forest. Now, I admit to not being a huge fan of this because the new hybrid trees planted, they grow faster, but they are less dense. Now, what do I mean by less dense? I like to do a little, playing around, excuse me, with wood. And obviously still, do love architecture. So when I talk about wood, if you look at the difference in the rings between these two pieces of wood, you've got more modern wood, 2018, and old wood, 1918. And you can immediately spot the difference. The number of rings, both of these are 2x4s. The number of rings in each piece is vastly different. The new wood grows faster, but it's less dense, it's less sturdy, it's not as durable, it's more susceptible to rotting. The old wood doesn't expand or contract as much as the new wood. And wood, as you have hot and cold, wood will expand some, but the more it does, the more it loosens the nails and works on the screws and those kind of things. So if I'm building, a piece of furniture, for example, I would much rather use old wood. It's harder to cut through. But practical reality is, and I'm not going to lie, I like, softer toilet paper and cheap notebooks.
Does have a baby. It has a baby. If the toilet paper doesn't have a baby or a bear on it, you don't need it.
If the toilet paper doesn't have a baby or a bear on it?
On the package, yeah.
I hadn't heard of that.
No?
Nope.
All right, I didn't find the whole thing I wanted to share with you, but I did find, now I got to figure out which tab it's in. Here it is, and I will email it to you.
Yeah, where's Rob? He ought to be watching this if he's not.
Why?
We're talking about wood.
Oh, yes. Just talk to him about that purple heartwood. He loves that.
Good old wood. Good old wood, I guess I should say.
Don't get the chat all excited. They get excited.
But there are practical realities to having quicker growing and cheaper wood.
Yeah.
Practical reality.
How do you think we have Christmas trees every year? They just oh crap. They just they replant them. Sorry, yeah. I'm half paying attention.
And half not.
Half not.
I noticed.
Sorry.
So the point of this is that some of the standards are contradictory. You talk about you want carbon reduction and don't want deforestation, but you need trees to be harvested. And with the carbon reduction, it's interesting. Instead of planting more trees, you have firms like BlackRock. BlackRock is seeking to invest $500 million in a carbon air sucking plant. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but they want to build a plant that will take carbon out of the air. $500 million. And I'm sitting there thinking, what could you do with trees with $500 million? And personally, I'd rather have the trees. Some nice hickory, elm, not Chinese elm, but regular elm, maple.
No Chinese elm ever again.
Yeah, we've got a Chinese elm in the back. The leaves are really small, shedding, sap drops. Little twigs are constantly falling from it. It's almost as annoying as a magnolia tree.
It never stops dropping something. Ever. There's no time of the year when I have to wash my car every day. All right, I think I'm about to get this to you. I have to put a freaking password.
Are you trying to send me something, or are you putting something
I'm
up?
trying to email it to you
WAP.
because I don't know when you want to. Do you want me to just, wouldn't we just put it up and you can decide when you want to? But you're sharing something already, right?
Go ahead and put it up.
Shit.
I never know what Ellen's going to do. So
No
her
one does.
favorite hobby is kind of blindsiding me. She gets a lot of entertainment value out of it.
I really
So
do.
I'm like, all right, let's see what you got.
All right, then let me go to okay, get StreamYard. Hi. I got to remove you. Oh, wood.
Yes,
That
evil
was wood.
twigs, Melissa. Very evil twigs. Little small, thin things get under
They're
your
awful.
windshield wipers. It's just annoying.
Oh,
I
and the
freely
leaves.
admit that.
Oh my God. They're so thin and tiny. They get underneath your windshield wipers and you can't clean your, it's just a hot mess.
Or the seal next to your windows, slide down in your door or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I probably got a little compost pile in my door.
I think it is.
All right, Ellen, the whole
Yep.
world's watching.
Can you see it? I'm going to let you read through it though. I have to be there and I can't see what's going on. I'm trying. I can't find it. There it is. All right. This was Fox. We're talking about DEI and ESG and all that stuff. Have you seen this? Tell me when to scroll down. I'm going to let you read it.
Go ahead and scroll down.
Oop. Are you going to read through it?
Not all of it, no.
Matt Walsh obtained internal documents from Fox News employees showing that Fox Corp encourages employees to support radical LGBTQIA plus organizations and has deployed woke AI that tracks people's commitment to DEI principles. A screenshot of Fox employee portal shared by Walsh showed that the company encourages employees to donate to the Trevor Project, the Ali Forney Center, and the LA LGBT Center. Fox also encourages employees to read explicit LGBTQ books like.
Yeah, let's not read it all. Just hit the highlights for us.
Well, they wanted to. The people didn't know what a glory hole was. They had to read this.
At work, Fox made them read detailed information on what a glory hole was.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the problem with DEI is the way that it's implemented.
See, I thought this was no, I'm sharing. Hang on. He had the whole screenshots of the whole thing. And they're like, if you don't, that's not it. If you weren't reading the materials and you weren't doing enough, to actually, sorry, I'm trying to, I can unshare. If you weren't going to enough, or reading enough books and studying enough literature about LGBTQIA and, I'm sorry, my brain's fried. I'm so tired from last night. And racial issues and how to include everyone in the world with everything, then you were given a negative score and you were let go.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty. You have what? Oh, Clay, don't fight with me on this one. How do you, if I knew how to pronounce that, I would. Yeah.
Jacaranda.
Jacaranda trees that leave evil. This one's gorgeous presents. Well, this tree leaves no presents. It produces nothing of value.
It's just evil.
It's just evil.
It's the kind of tree that makes you wonder who the hell picked it out, because this whole thing was landscaped. somebody decided that that would be a good tree to plant. And I'm like, could have made a little better choice. But anyway,
And there are
now I'm not
two.
familiar with the jacaranda tree. What is the gorgeous present? Be interested to find that out.
Maybe it's a pretty flower or a fruit or a nut or I have no idea. Look it up.
Not familiar with the trees. But as you know, Ellen was talking, some of these ESG standards, or DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, are highly controversial. Some of the ideas may sound good, such as human rights. Who doesn't support human rights? But the devil's always in the details. You know, we've seen a lot of this lately. For example, protesting the harm done to women and children in Gaza. But the same people were and have been silent on the brutal torturing of women and children in the attacks Israel experienced. You know,
Well,
much ado is made about human rights abuses in the war on Ukraine, but absolute silence on the abuses going on in Azerbaijan or in the migrant caravans that, you know, come to the U.S. with all the child sex trafficking and rapes going on.
Yeah, no one's talking about that.
Yeah, it just
also, when in Yemen, when hundreds of thousands of Muslims were killed, there was no parade, there was no protest about it. Did you see one? Because I must have missed it if there was one.
No, it just more often seems whose ox is getting gored rather than any established principle. And I'm not the only one to notice this. This has been an observation of people, you know, for a number of years, and I think is greatly contributing to the fading of, you know, appreciation for ESG and DEI. Purple flowers. I gotta admit, you know, love some purple flowers. It's a pretty and unusual shade.
Hang on.
The drop flowers are also pup hazards because the bees still go after the drop flowers.
Melissa, my dog stepped on a bee. You won't get it.
When?
No. Let it go.
Ellen?
You'll never get it. Amber Heard had a fit on the stand about her dog stepping on a bee.
Okay.
See, Melissa's laughing. Inside joke. Inside
it's okay.
Joke.
I mean, let's face it, that trial did more to help, you know, a lot of YouTubers than anything else. And it held the attention of millions and millions of people. So it was quite the circus. I didn't get to see it all in detail. I just saw parts of it, but freely admit it was quite the circus.
Unfortunately, I watched the entire thing.
Yeah, that's how you know these little things nobody else does.
Oh, everybody saw that on Twitter and everywhere else.
I did.
Oh, it was such an embarrassment. I know, but
so DEI. One big problem with DEI's implementation, again, there's not a specific principle that's really embraced. It's subject to a lot of interpretation and whimsy. And a lot of the implementation of DEI holds that discrimination based on the pigment in a person's skin is okay. You know, we see where segregation is now being reintroduced in graduations or classes. We see it in hiring. We see promotions solely on the basis of the amount of pigment in one's skin.
Clay, I gotta say, I grew up in a town where my elementary and middle school were 60-40 black to white. I was a minority. And then my mom moved me to Raleigh. And then I was in a high school that was 95%, 5% white to black. Whole different reality that I was not used to. But Our class president, Eric, smartest guy I knew that everybody knew. We elected him class president. He was black. Out of 5%, I don't see or haven't experienced and haven't, I guess, thought or engaged in anything where race or sexuality or anything was ever an issue in my life, ever.
I mean, it's just my opinion, but I think race relations were far better in the 90s than they are now.
Oh, they're
I
much
see
more.
a lot more people obsessed with race things now than I saw in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, we just never thought about it. It just wasn't.
Yeah. It wasn't an issue. Now it's a huge issue again. It's
You're
like
gay.
the 50s and
Cool.
60s are being relived. And bringing back some of that stuff like segregation. Harvard now has separate graduations for whites and blacks.
That
It's just
is so
insane.
backwards. Why do you think there's a move to do this? Why do you think that schools are bringing back segregation? Is it because who wants this? Who's pushing for
I mean,
it?
just
Where's the
some of the same interest groups that are profiting from it.
who?
Well, I mean, just different groups. We're not going to get into all that.
Okay.
This is just a general overview. We're not going to let the night be consumed by that.
Okay.
But
Melissa said that.
give you an
Melissa said the trial is how she found LawTube than MoneyTube.
And we are very thankful for that.
So see what Johnny Depp and Amber Heard did.
If I see him, I'll kiss him.
Oh,
give them our express gratitude for their circus of a relationship that they presented to the world as a whole. And they really provided the guidelines on how to grow a channel. You just find, a circus relationship and broadcast it. Because it's like a traffic wreck. People love to slow down and, see if they can see the blood and the gore and the guts or the mangled bodies or whatever.
You don't want to, you don't want to look, but you can't help it.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing, it just draws attention. And, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, you'd listen to one day and you think it can't get any better. But then the next day would come and something else would grab the attention. Now, speaking of, extremes on DEI and what turns a lot of people off, here's an example. Forbes magazine printed an article on DEI titled 3 Ways to Transform Your Workplace to Be More Equitable. It was originally named 3 Ways to Decenter Whiteness in Your Workplace. Written by the woman that goes by the name of Janice Asari. She claims there are ways where whiteness is centered in the workplace and calls for, in the article repeatedly, whiteness to be toppled from prominence and replaced by equity and justice. So the implication clearly is white is not equitable or just.
Okay,
this really reminds me.
You got to back up a sec.
All right.
Because I was, because I do this, watching Charlie Kirk. He does his campus things, and he was in a debate with a black student, and she was just debating him on a lot of different issues. But she was saying that she doesn't have the opportunities that he does. And he's like, what can you do? What can I do that you can't? And she was like, well, you can get to whatever college. And he was like, wait a minute. He said the population percentages, or at least they were a year ago, 18% blacks in the United States. He said colleges are 33% black. Shouldn't it be equal percentage based on the population? Like, how do you see that as a disadvantage to you?
What'd she say?
She had nothing to say. It kind of shut her up for a minute because he was just, stop. He was like, how is that a white privilege to go to college?
Yeah, like I say, things are, people are looking for racial inequality now. And in the 90s, it just wasn't an issue. It reminds me, for example, give you some other examples of Seattle schools teaching that math is racist. It's used to oppress people of color. You've got Pittsburgh schools, hiring consultants to change math instruction to be less racist in its instruction. The assistant super.
I think it became more racist when Obama made did the new math.
The assistant superintendent McNeil argues that in math, at times, and get this, at times there is no right or wrong answer. In math, there is no right or wrong answer. But we don't emphasize the right or wrong answer. We emphasize the journey. So what she's basically saying is you don't need to learn to do it right. You just need to screw around with it and enjoy your time in it. And all will be well.
How does that improve your life? How does that make you a better person or a more educated person to get you further on in whatever it is you want to accomplish?
Yep. Fair question. Can't answer it.
Thanks.
Then there's always the Ontario schools controversy over the way 2 + 2 = 4 is taught being a racist. That discussion was held in a, Ontario schools math subgroup.
Are you shitting me?
No.
2 + 2 always equals 4.
Yeah. The way it's taught is racist.
Oh, okay.
And we wonder why, for the first time in this country's history, why IQ scores are declining.
Not shocking.
A lot of students can't read and write at the 8th grade level, much less do math.
Because we're so focused on teaching DEI. Yeah.
I don't even want to get started on that, but it's incredible. Melissa, how are the numbers racist? I don't think they argue necessarily that numbers themselves are racist, but quote unquote, the way it's being taught. For example, one individual, I don't have the exact quote, but one individual was discussing this and talking about how whites view math as important and blacks don't. So it's racist to try to stress and teach math to blacks.
Isn't that a cultural issue and not a...
It's an idiot issue. I tell my class, whether they're white or black, the 2 most important subjects you'll ever take are math and English. Math, because it disciplines the mind, it teaches it to think in a rational and cogent manner. And English, because you can have the greatest ideas in the world, but if you can't effectively communicate them, they're worthless.
Yeah. So
what it is, for example, Baltimore, their inner city schools, they have 26 schools. They had zero, these inner city 26 schools had 0% students who achieved oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Standard?
Who achieved the grade level standard in math, writing, history, whatever,
0%.
in any subjects.
None.
Yeah, none.
Like
Complete and utter failure.
none.
And so you've got the educators trying to justify their failure. Now,
What are they
I'm
doing
an
in class all
educator.
day?
Exactly. I'm an educator. And, I'm criticizing, or I often criticize the system I work in, that we are screwing kids over by
Well, that's because
failing to demand that they excel.
that's because of the condition that you get them in when they come
Well,
to you.
yeah, and that's just a continuing legacy. The teachers that got them in the 8th grade could say, well, they weren't ready for the 8th grade, but they passed them anyway.
Because you know why? Because the teachers' scores go down in the state if they don't have enough passing students.
Yeah, they get graded on their pass-fail rate, rather than
What they're actually teaching.
whether they had any chance to actually teach them.
Right.
But the whole system is just embedded with this attitude and these kind of inept people. We reward ineptness by failing to demand excellence, by not holding any teacher. When have you ever heard of a teacher being fired because she couldn't teach? I never have.
Often.
I never have. When have you heard a principal being fired because his school was below standards?
Never.
I never have. Now, you want to tell me in the whole universe of schools and teachers that there are not teachers out there who can't teach? There are not principals out there whose schools never achieve standards?
Wait, are you saying every educator is perfect?
No. I'm just saying there are idiots in the field and they are never removed. And they are growing in number.
I like Melissa's
run
comment.
The systems. Do what?
I like Melissa's comment.
Yeah. I mean, it's true.
It is. It's sad. I mean, I'm sure I've told this story before. My son was 6. He was in kindergarten because he has a December birthday, or he's about to turn. No, he just turned 6. About to turn 6. Anyway, and he had a spelling test. He spelled every word correctly. Now, they no longer teach penmanship in North Carolina schools. And his teacher failed him for penmanship. Gave him a 50. I was like, but he spelled all the words right. But she didn't like the way that he wrote them because he started from the bottom instead of the top, like we were always taught when we learned penmanship and cursive and all that stuff. So when he did like a B, I'm gonna try to do it. It would go this way and then this way. And she did not like the way that he wrote. And so she gave him a 50 on his spelling test.
Yeah, there's just too many inept teachers holding a job. And secondly, there's way too many systems that have more administrators and administrative staff than they do teachers. They're no longer in the business of education. They're in the business of administering education. And they're only concerned about job security and pay raises, not education, not the kids. The kids don't matter. Seeing the kids excel no longer is even a goal. Some teachers work in schools where their main concern is just surviving the day without getting their butt kicked. I feel sorry for those people. And I know there are some teachers, there's a lot of good teachers out there that do genuinely care, do genuinely try. They are just outnumbered, outmanned, and outstupided.
Let me ask you a question. There is a teaching fellow program in North Carolina where if you go to a state-supported school, you can get a scholarship if you're going to become a teacher. but you have to work in North Carolina for 5 years teaching.
Right.
So if those students graduate college and they're not a good teacher, they still have to be in the system for 5 years. Is
Yeah.
that is that a good motivation to become a teacher, or is that just failing the students more?
I don't know. It just depends on the individuals. There's a lot of people who I think would be very good teachers that don't have a teaching certificate. I think a teaching certificate is one of the most useless things in existence. I don't think you need to go and take education courses to know how to teach or reach kids or to care. I've had teachers use all sorts of different methods that I would consider to be outstanding teachers. I think we all have. When I try to think of what makes a good teacher, I can't think of any one technique. I can't think of any one, method of teaching that makes the teacher a great teacher. The only thing that I think that there's only one thing that I think is consistent among all of them, that are those people who I would consider to be good teachers or great teachers. And that is that they gave a damn.
Well,
They
okay.
cared that their students not only learn, but excel. They demanded excellence from their students, and they believed in their students. They believed that they could do it. And some of them were behind. They'd work with them more. Try to help bring them up to snuff.
That was kind of my point, is that North Carolina, in order to encourage people to become teachers, if you take this teaching fellow program, they will pay for a lot of your education. If
I
you
know.
teach.
You said that. Yeah.
But they may not even want to be a teacher.
Well, then they don't have to sign up. I don't know.
But they do, because it helps pay for their education.
No, that's okay.
Do you think it's a good program to do that with people who may or may not want to teach?
I mean,
you
if
have
somebody
to love teaching. Yes or no?
Don't know. I haven't, met everyone from that program. I would assume that just like in the full-time education teaching programs, there are people there that will end up being good teachers, and there are people there that will end up sucking wind. I have no basis to distinguish that program from any other. Don't really know. But I do know that bad teachers aren't removed from the system. Lousy principals aren't removed from the system. And that way too many systems have more administrative staff than they do teachers. The whole focus increasingly of the educational system is maintaining the educational system, not teaching the students. And that's where my real beef lies. I don't care. For example, we have the GE nuclear headquarters here in town. Some of these guys would be, I think, absolutely great to go in and teach high school math, geometry, algebra, trig, maybe calculus, pre-calculus, whatever. Let them do it for an hour or two a week. But they can't because they don't have a teaching certificate. I have a PhD in finance. I can't go teach a personal finance course in high school because I don't have a teaching certificate.
Seriously?
Yeah. It's just stupid. And it's the educational establishment wants to maintain a monopoly and control who does what. They'll talk about students don't work at home, but then if parents try getting involved in the kids' education, they're like, leave us alone. We're the experts. Make up your mind. Do the parents need to be involved? Do the parents need to care about the kids' education, or do they not? I know where I stand.
They should.
I think the parents should be obsessed with their kids' education.
Mm-hmm.
And, by obsessed, I don't mean that, for example, in the um, Oriental paradigm, moms live their life to oversee the kids' education. Dads live their life while they have kids to work. I'm not saying it needs to be that extreme.
And just make sure you know what they're learning and that they are learning.
But we used to could do an outstanding job of teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, and history in one-room schools without all of the air conditioning, luxuries, whatever, electricity. They were studied by candlelight. They worked by candlelight. One teacher for 20 kids.
That taught
30
all
kids.
the subjects.
Yeah. And, if we need to, hell's bells, let's go back to that. Kids need to learn how to read, write, do arithmetic at a 12th grade level in order to have any chance of success in this future world. And if we rob them of that, we are robbing them of their future. And that's where people get mad and angry, is when they have no hope of a better future. So that's the risk of an ideology that focuses on anything other than individual excellence. Whether it's, I could say you're not tall enough to be a math student, or, you're not white enough to be a math student. I could take any physical characteristic and use that to undermine a student's ability to achieve academically. And that's what we're doing with a lot of this stuff.
They're not taking responsibility for their failure to teach, for their failure to care.
It's always somebody else's problem or fault. The kids don't have food. And trust me, that is a problem in some schools. The mom's a drug addict and the kid doesn't get breakfast.
And dad's gone.
Dad's gone? Yeah. Feed the kids breakfast before classes start. Feed them a good lunch. Give them a bag to take home of food. You've still got 7 hours with them to do something educationally. Use the damn time. The two aren't mutually exclusive.
Empower them instead of take their power away, because they already feel insecure.
Yeah, there are kids around the world in India and Africa that have food scarcity, but their education is still so much better than ours. And in 20 years, those are the kids that our kids will be calling boss. The U.S. is moving toward what I consider to be a two-tiered educational system. You've got the elite schools. Tuition may be $70,000 a year to send your kid to this private prep school. And here the kids are taught how to read, how to write, how to do math. They're taught how to lead. They're taught world events, world history. Why the hell can't we teach that in every other school as well? I don't understand. Money doesn't make reading any easier.
Because there's a test at the end of the year, almost every year, between kindergarten through 10th grade. And on that test, there are certain specific questions, and the teachers know exactly what they are. And if their kids don't know that, then they can be fired. So that's all they teach.
Well, they don't even teach that because kids don't do all that well on the test.
Well, I know they don't, but
it's the point is at these prep schools, they expect the kids to excel.
I'm talking about public school.
Why can't they in public school? They
because
can do the same damn thing that they're doing in prep schools in every public school.
Because they're too, excuse me, effing scared to lose their job if their kids don't make the test grades. I know they don't, but comparatively, I mean, 50 is better than 40. And that's all they care about are their kids' test scores. That's it.
Melissa, is it any wonder so many people homeschool?
I wish
You know, it's
more
not
would.
only the educational aspect, it's the safety aspect a lot of time. Every day almost, you can see a video of kids beating up other kids, fighting, beating up the teacher, shooting in schools, whatever. If I had a kid and was married, I almost guarantee you I would have a strong preference to homeschool my kids versus sending them to the public schools. You know, if I could afford a $30,000-$40,000 private school or a $10,000 or $12,000, there's a private school here in town. I think it's $10,000 a year. I don't know exactly.
12,000 a semester, or not a semester, but a half year.
But it does pretty good. Its students do well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the thing is, though, as far as safety is concerned, I was actually talking to a friend of mine. I think I've mentioned this before about my daughter homeschooling in her sophomore year of high school, second semester, because she was being harassed by a guy. Well, I have a friend who came by the other day, and her daughter is in elementary school, and she's being harassed by a little boy. Both her daughter and mine, different times, clearly different ages, were told that they had to change their schedule. They could change schools. Why aren't we dealing with the people who are actually doing the bullying and harassing? Why are we making the people who are uncomfortable and who are being bullied and harassed, why are we making them change what they're doing? That is a question that blows me. It's like, makes no sense whatsoever.
It's just further testimony to the failure of the educational system and the way educational systems are structured and the way educational schools teach and design the educational system. The whole system is just a failure.
The bully. Let's don't upset the bully. But since you're the victim, it's teaching victimhood. You need to change your schedule to allow for the bullying. You need to change what you're doing. I was furious. Sorry, little rant.
No. We call it rambling, not ranting.
Well, that was a little rant, but it still pisses me off. I'm sorry.
Back to the well-known Miss Asari with the Forbes article. She was talking about, if you remember, the whiteness issue. Well, she argues her position is based upon the idea that despite the best laid plans of corporate America, DEI efforts haven't been as successful as anticipated.
You think?
So she's here, and this article was just last month. She's admitting that DEI is fading, which to me was the best line in the whole article. Now, you're seeing companies increasingly, it's not uniform, it's not unanimous yet, but you're seeing an increasing number of companies rejecting DEI and ESG. You're seeing investors.
They're wasting tons of money on it.
You're seeing investors reject ESG, DEI. You know, critics have been very successful in painting DEI as a, kind of a racist cultural movement that puts radical ideas from critical race theory, gender theory, queer theory, all into practice. I remember seeing an Instagram picture of a teacher of kindergartners, and her caption was, "Another day to turn kids queer." If my kid had been in that class and I saw that,
And yeah, we don't have
I don't
any
know.
issue against gay, bi, lesbian, whatever. That is not an issue. But I think people need to find out for themselves when they're adults or semi-adults and not 5-year-olds. Do what you want.
Do what you want. Just don't try to teach it to my kids. I don't care if you're hetero, pedo, gay, whatever.
Pedo, really?
Well, I was just thinking of every alternative, but I'll stand corrected on that.
Thank you.
But I don't want anybody teaching my kid their sexual proclivities in kindergarten, first, second, third, sixth, eighth, 12th grade. I want them to teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic. They haven't been able to do that. So just focus on the basics before you even think about adding anything else to that list.
Our job as parents. It's your job as a parent.
But it's a combination. A lot of schools hide what they teach.
I'm just saying, ideally, it is your job as a parent to handle those issues and to be there for your child and support your child in whatever way that you think is appropriate. It is not up to school, teachers, administrators, whoever, to not tell you what's going on with your kids. That's awful. And to put ideas in their head when they are so young and impressionable that they may not even know what's going on and fall into, I don't know.
Well, we've seen the market's response to Bud Light's implementation of DEI in its marketing, as well as Victoria's Secret's implementation. The market as a whole is starting to consistently reject this extreme manifestation of equality. Many people are viewing it as not fundamentally concerned with equality at all. And it's become a rather hot political issue. Some argue that DEI encourages companies to lose focus on the important stuff, what they should be focused on. Some even argue that DEI initiatives actually are a violation of a corporation's fiduciary responsibility to its stockholders, to its shareholders. It detracts management's view from what it ought to be doing and what it ought to consider important. And you've got prominent individuals like Elon Musk who wonder aloud how a cigarette company like Philip Morris can have a higher ESG score than a EV manufacturer like Tesla. Which one supposedly is better for the environment, better for, society, etc. So we've seen criticisms increase over the past few years, and the market is beginning to react. Long the favored child in markets. Highly rated ESG companies fared worse this past year, 2022. For the first time since ESG really was started, 2010, 2011. Remember Morgan Stanley's report that we talk about, the dropping interest in sustainable investing? Well, investors are increasingly believing or evaluating sustainable investing and realizing it might harm performance in the investment portfolio. And they're acting on that belief. So is ESG falling out of favor? Well, even the New York Times thinks it is. Well, I actually thought I had that article and I don't. Yeah, I do.
Why
There
don't
it
you?
is. There it is. Article in the New York Times. Is ESG falling out of favor? October 24th, 2023. So and I think most people would agree the New York Times is a left-leaning paper. Even it thinks ESG is falling out of favor. So this is not really just my perspective. Money managers over the past year closed ESG funds at a record clip last quarter, indicating again a pretty strong shift away from this type of investment and these types of managers who weigh heavily or invest heavily according to ESG scores. Many states are even pulling their funds out of such funds. BlackRock, for example, the largest investment management firm in the world, has seen almost $3 trillion walk. Just last quarter, investors pulled $2.7 trillion in ESG funds, the fourth straight quarter of such flows, according to Morningstar, who tracks mutual funds pretty closely, rates them. So, this declining interest in ESG investing has forced managers to close more ESG funds than what they open. Key is investors are focusing more on cash and profits rather than ideology. A declining market, a poor economy, high inflation has a way of focusing people's attention on the important things, which should always serve as a reminder to us of what to focus on when you consider an investment. So, I've always held that the only thing that matters in investing is cash. Show me the money, in the words of the immortal philosopher Rob Tidwell. Did y'all ever see Jerry Maguire, the movie? Great movie.
Who hasn't seen that?
Do what?
Come on. I said, who hasn't seen that?
Well, if you were in my class, I could show you about 30 kids that hadn't seen it.
They're babies.
They are. Parental failure.
Yeah, clearly.
So, and the idea isn't that these ideas necessarily are wrong or bad. It's that like SVB, the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, it was so obsessed with DEI that it hired a DEI manager instead of a risk manager. So it felt like the social issues were more important than its actual risk its depositors and shareholders were exposed to. That's why I say if you're investing, I don't care what your preferences, beliefs are, it's really irrelevant. The one thing you focus on is cash. Cash, show me the money. It's the only reason people invest. I've seen social movements for every generation. It seems like every generation comes up with some social preference. It used to be blood diamonds or South Africa, whatever. It's hard to find a company that is perfectly moral and will meet every moral standard. So that's, to me, as a portfolio manager, investment advisor, whatever, that was always a concern to me. Now, let me ask you, if a company is producing a product that poisons its customers, how long will it stay in business?
Not long.
Ellen, I'm going to go ahead and remove you because of the sound effects. We are professionals. WAP strikes again. So, and it's not that any of these beliefs are morally right or morally wrong, but as an investor, you have to pick and choose. And if you invest in order to make money, then the only thing really that should have a priority is the cash flow, because ultimately it's the cash flow of that firm that will create profit for the shareholders. Now, honestly, if somebody wants to invest just for social causes, more power to them. Don't mind that at all. It's their money. As long as they're aware of how they are investing and why they're investing and what the expected results are, I'm good with that. It's their money. You do what you want with your life, your money. Not a not a problem at all with that. But when somebody tries to force their particular preferences corporately on employees and shareholders, it's kind of where I draw the line. Company should run the business, should do so morally. My favorite example is the Eli Lilly. Um, what was his partner's name? Maybe it was Eli and Lilly, two last names. Anyway, um, early 1900s, they were starting out, and they hired chemists to help them compound the products. And one chemist came up to them and said, I've got this new compound. It works almost as good as this product, but we can make it for a lot less. Works almost as good. Eli, they both stood there silent for a second. Eli then turned to Lilly and said, Mr. Lilly, would you begin making this man's check out? We have no further need of his service. Lilly replied, it's too late. I've already begun. They knew that their future success was based on having the trust of their customers. And that led them to making correct decisions. Companies in the US, when they found out that lead was toxic and the danger, some of these byproducts being discharged into the system and the rivers, they started cleaning up the environment decades before the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, was formed. Any company that takes a position that's contrary to its consumers' best interest, health, welfare, once the consumers find out, is screwed and should be. I don't think, we've had the FDA, the EPA, and, if we look just at food sources, the quality of our food sources, all the processed food and everything, what the stuff they put into there, can we say regulation has been a success? It's hard for me to argue that. ESG has also been plagued by this issue some. For example, the act of greenwashing has plagued the entire field and added to the doubts cast upon it. Greenwashing is simply the act of saying the right words without necessarily doing anything. The goal is to appear environmentally friendly. For example, if a company was making a plastic shower curtain and packed it in a plastic bag, it might be labeled prominently recyclable. Now, there's no indication on whether the shower curtain is recyclable or the bag that it's in is recyclable. But the buyer can be comforted by seeing the words recyclable and knowing that they've bought a green product. Even if and when the time comes that the shower curtain is dirty, moldy, covered in soap scum, they'll just wad it up and throw it away. The most people aren't aware that they're recycling bins. The contents end up in the landfills because there's not the capacity or demand for recycled products. It's just a fascinating industry once you get into it and look in the weeds. It's I say fascinating, that's I guess code for disappointing. You would hope and expect better, but you see companies like Coke and Starbucks try to play off this, we're environmentally friendly attitude. Well, they both have been accused of greenwashing. For example, probably the biggest case, at least one of the biggest cases in history, was Coca-Cola for having a low sugar label. We've got the baby kitty here.
I poured something to drink and then went to ponder.
You got the chair okay? I'll finish this up real quick. Coca-Cola produced a product called Coca-Cola Life, and it had a label on it, low sugar. Well, that product still contained, per small bottle, still contained 6 tablespoons of sugar.
That's a lot.
But it was less than their regular Coke. So they labeled it low sugar. Yeah, I don't know if y'all can see, but Mahoney's under there. That's her.
She don't feel so good.
Yeah.
She's purring.
She had a rough night. She is a sweet cat. Relatively low maintenance. But every once in a while, she's very demanding when it comes to wanting attention. She's
gotten everything she wanted today and when she wanted it.
Yeah. Coca-Cola also was sued for some of its plastic waste claims that, it was reducing the use of plastic. Well, it's one of the largest users of plastic in the world. So if you go from 100% plastic to 99% plastic. Well, yes, you've reduced your use of plastic, but it's almost immaterial. Melissa tells you hi. She's saying hi to you.
Say hey. Mahoney says hi. She's just, I don't feel so good.
You have one sweet person telling a sweet cat hi. And that's what's cool about the internet. So the bottom line, ESG scores. Remember, I talked about how you've got like organizations like the CFA Society that has developed methods to quantify this activity, figure a ESG score, a numerical, a number that corresponds with their compliance with these ESG aims and goals. The market has found out over the past few years that these scores really aren't relevant to the performance of the company. They are very poor indicator oftentimes, and it may even detract from it, such as in SVB's case. SVB had ESG scores through the roof. And we all know what happened with them. So I can literally hear Mahoney purring. I'm sorry I can't broadcast that, but right now I would say she's pretty content with her situation. She doesn't get near the attention the two mutts do. They are far more demanding.
But you keep wanting to get deeper, but then you don't. I don't know how to. I know. I think I'm gonna let Emma know something's up.
Do what?
Emma.
Okay. Probably would. Yep. Emma's her daughter, and Emma took one of the cats that we had.
This is her cat. She took my cat. Makes sense, right?
Yeah. And we also gave her the coolest kitty litter box I've ever seen. Yeah, I kind of regret that, but it's this big round drum over a box. And when a cat steps in, does their business, and then steps out, the drum starts rotating and it's shaped to where it drops the dirty litter down below and saves the clean litter and then restores it back. So you never had to scoop it, and it would tell you when it was getting full. So you just go up, pull out the drawer, wrap up the bag, throw it away, put in another bag, put it back. It was beautiful. Beautiful little system. And we gave that to her. Don't know why, but we gave that to her. Robo litter box. If anybody needs a litter box, it's a little pricey, but it works. Took the cat 30 seconds to get used to it, and after that, everybody was happy. So ESG. We've seen, countries adapt ESG standards and policies. Europe, for example, has been hot and heavy after it politically, to the point where they have shut down most of their coal plants. Germany shut down all their nuclear plants, which nuclear's, once you get it up and going, is a relatively clean energy source. Well, this has led to an inconsistent supply as well as reduce the production of energy. Well, less energy means higher prices. Higher prices means greater inflation. And, higher prices for energy really slammed the poor and the middle class. Was listening to, what's his name? Daniel Lacalle. He's a European economist and manages probably about $6 billion in assets. So modestly significant guy in the investment community. And he was talking about how electricity bills in Europe have gone up 60 to 70% in just the last year. And energy intensive businesses are now having a hard time producing or staying in business as well due to the soaring energy cost. If you're a small business and you're energy dependent, if you're an ice cream shop, you've got the refrigerators and the coolers going all the time, making new ice cream. If you're a restaurant, you've got all the ovens and everything going. Soaring energy costs really, really hurts, as well as the greater likelihood of not having an abundant supply of energy. Bottom line, available cheap energy is necessary for a growing and prospering society. Bottom line, you can't have a prosperous society without cheap energy. Never been done. Won't be done because it's so critical to manufacturing and additional services. He goes on to state that in Germany alone, about 70% of all the household bills are now subsidized. Not sure how he came up with that figure, but it's his figure. His point was that you can't tame high cost, otherwise known as inflation, with inflationary policies. I have two dogs attacking me now. So the government's creating shortages. You've got lower production. Its spending is increasing in terms of subsidies, so it's printing more money. And then having to raise rates to try to tamp down the inflation. Does anybody else see a problem with this that is just not conducive to a good economy, a good future? The EU has to import energy from the rest of the world because they've killed their own energy production. So basically, most energy is traded in dollars, sold in dollars. So Germany, Europe, has to spend euros to buy dollar-denominated goods, oil. Well, this increases the demand for the dollar and increases the number of euros out in circulation, which lowers the value of the euro. A falling currency, a weakening currency, is also inflationary. So, this is kind of like a double whammy for European consumers, and it's just getting started. Have seen where recently Germany has started tearing down some of its wind farms in order to start mining coal again. England is struggling with its offshore wind farms. The price, the government recently just raised the price of offshore energy by 66% because they couldn't get any private firms to invest in it. And all the energy firms say no. Um, and I think I've told you before how much I hate windmills. Absolutely hate windmills. I hate them for economic reasons, hate them for environmental, hate them with concerns with endangered species. Windmills kill a bunch of eagles, for example, and pelicans. I love pelicans. I'm sitting there on the beach watching them. They're flying around. They just dive right into the water. Boom. You know, grab a fish. But they're cool. Love pelicans. Well, windmills have a number of issues. One, the engines are made with something called a rare earth mineral, which is used in the motor of the windmill. Rare earth minerals are mined, most of them or a lot of them for these engines come from or motors come from China, which uses slave labor to mine the minerals. Secondly, one of the minerals mined leaves behind radioactive waste. So you're contaminating a whole area with radioactive waste. Third, building the windmills out in the ocean. They'll have to use sonar and have explosions. Well, we know that sonar actually kills whales. All right, where's my screen? The Navy, 20 years ago, admitted that sonar killed whales. And up in New Jersey, they are building windmills off the shore, and they're seeing a greatly increased incidence of whales beaching themselves. So to me, there's just nothing, and windmill energy is expensive and it's unreliable. And as soon as the tax credits are gone, the windmills are left to rot, aren't maintained. Windmills use, I forget, is it 40 gallons or 60 gallons of oil a month to lubricate? Something like that. Something ridiculous. So, just not a windmill fan. And interestingly, for example, in China, where most of the solar panels and turbine engines are made, just announced a new program where the government is going to build a number of coal fired energy plants. They've already got more coal plants in the developmental phase than the rest of the world combined, and now they're adding to it. India is also increasing its reliance on coal. It's increasing coal production and the number of plants over the next 6 years. Why not solar? Why not solar? Well, here's a picture of a solar farm in Nebraska. And I don't know how well you can see this image. You can Google it. But all these panes with all the little white, looks like bullet holes in them, that's actually what a hailstorm did to this entire field. You had over 14,000 solar panels destroyed, turned into a pile of toxic rubble in minutes. Again, green is not green, and it's expensive as hell. So these are all reasons why the market is moving away from it. It simply is not sustainable. Any reliance upon it will make the Western world, or the countries that rely upon it, will make their industries uncompetitive and will end up lowering living standards in the country. Let's be honest, if green energy were so good and so cheap, the government wouldn't have to order everyone to do it. It wouldn't have to spend trillions trying to subsidize an inefficient industry. People would be embracing it on their own because it was better for them. Well, it's not. So simply the reliance on old narratives about sustainability, about being green, have shown no relationship whatsoever to the results produced by those ideas, and certainly can't serve as a basis for increased massive spending and taking on massive debt. ESG's time has come and gone. DEI is dead. It's just harder to placate and tolerate nonsense when interest rates aren't zero and there's no free money. Cash is back to being king. Melissa, are there any good options? When you say good options, you mean for like social investing or moral investing? I'm not sure what you mean by good in terms of overall investing right now. I'm not even terribly hot, my opinion, and where I have my money. I still have my money in cash, money markets, short-term treasuries. I am not in the stock market. Energy. Um, you probably, I don't know, the profitable energy is going to be carbon-based fuels for a while. Now, there are some technologies. There's, for example, a new battery technology that may be based on graphene. If that ends up being viable, that may be a pretty damn good field. I personally think that the future of energy is going to be hydrolysis. You take a water molecule, which is H2O, break it up. Well, if you break it up, it gives off hydrogen and oxygen, two relatively useful gases. Excuse me. Well, the hydrogen can then be burned for energy. Well, when hydrogen burns, it's a process called oxidation. So the byproduct of burning hydrogen gas is water. The problem with that is it takes more energy to break up a water molecule into the two separate components than the energy produced by burning the byproduct hydrogen. Does that make sense? So the obstacle in that is finding a catalyst that lowers that energy threshold in breaking up the molecule. And I think the US Navy, I think the Israelis are relatively close. And once they do, then all of our energy concerns are mute at that point. You just need you put a gallon of water in your car and it runs forever. You run a pipe to the ocean and you have literally endless energy supplies. But you've got to find that catalyst first. And I think that's probably the future. Also, in terms of carbon byproducts, which a lot of people are environmentally concerned, carbon is 0.04% of the atmosphere. It has actually in past history been up to 7% when, animals and everybody was living all, it really wasn't harmful. But out of that 0.04%, humans contribute 0.03%. So we really, our use of carbon fuels is really such an insignificant portion of the carbon being released in the air. And some of the arguments are silly to me. For example, people trying to get rid of cows because of cow farts. Well, what they're talking about is cows eating grass and vegetation and breaking it down, and then the byproduct is methane released into the air, carbon gas. But the thing is, these same grasses and plants that the cows eat, given another few months, they're going to die and decay anyway. And when they decay, they will release the methane gas. So net over time, there's no real change in the amount of methane being released into the system. So it's kind of a little ridiculous, my opinion, to be concerned about cow farts as far as energy. Um, but that's a good question, and it makes me want to spend a little bit more time trying to do some more research on future energy sources and markets. But right now, that's kind of the best I've got. I hope that helps. Any other questions? Um, I kind of am going to go ahead and stop here. Ellen is talking to Mahoney a lot. So I'm not sure what's going on, but it doesn't sound good. So I'm going to go ahead and break here and go check on Ellen and Mahoney. I do want to thank y'all for your time, for being with us tonight. Sorry for the interruptions. It's part of the process of life, I think, but really appreciate y'all being here and hope this is, some information that helps a little bit. Obviously some personal irritations that maybe didn't help, but I just value education. I value individuals and people. I, I don't care about their personal choices or life. They're responsible for their life. But I find it deeply insulting when a system or a system that I'm involved in says one thing and just does another. So that's a personal irritation to me. But thank you for being with us. Thank you for your patience and your support. Hope y'all have a great night, rest of the weekend, and blessings to you all. Thank you. Y'all have a great night.